Hi everybody, this is Hero back with another Dragonflight video, and in this one I'm taking a look at a third Enhancement Shaman AoE or Mythic Plus approach. And I'm doing these highlights just to show you guys that there are, in my opinion, some really good talent designs for enhancement coming in Dragonflight. Even if this talent tree changes a little bit, which I expect it might, I think the baseline version that they have right now is excellent. So enabling you in lots of different kinds of content to approach it in a variety of ways. And that's sort of what the hope is, I think, for most of the player base, that then when they come to Enhancement Shaman, they feel like they have some legitimate choices. I highlighted basically a fire damage with a little bit of crash lightning only approach last time, and also a Wind Fury with Doom Wind's approach for AoE as well on a 1-minute CD. In this video, I'm looking at the Frost options with Hailstorm and the new Ice Strike ability. So I'll just read it and then I'll explain what the goal is of this approach and how it differs from the other ones. Ice Strike used to reset your shocks and do a little bit of damage. That's what its baseline was as a talent. Now it reads, strike your target and increase the damage of your next Frost Shock by 100%. That's a gigantic amp. So we're going to start to take a look at how we can modify our gameplay to increase Frost Shock damage. Hailstorm is the go-to here, whereas in the Fire build, Fire Nova was kind of a filler button. It does a lot of damage, but the focus was really on pumping out a lot of lava lashes. And it didn't necessarily have a gigantic amount of synergy with the build. It was just that you're obviously going to have a bunch of flame shocks out on the targets, so we might as well take advantage of it by pressing Fire Nova. Here, Hailstorm is more central to the build. The idea is every 5 Maelstrom weapons that we spend is going to give our next Frost Shock a gigantic cleave. Not only is it going to hit up to 5 additional targets, but it's going to amplify the damage that it does to those targets. Pairing that together with Ice Strike every 15 seconds means that basically every other, depending on our Maelstrom weapon generation, every other spender of Maelstrom weapon, whether it's Chain Lightning or Elemental Blast, is going to be modified by Ice Strike, because we can probably in AoE get enough going in a 15-second window that every other spender gives you enough Maelstrom to do it. So I'm guessing maybe our intake isn't that good, but this is the idea. So instead of using our overflowing Maelstrom, which allows us to spend 10 Maelstrom weapon stacks, we're going to be taking a look at focused Maelstrom. And the reason for this is we are capped in Hailstorm on the amount of buff that we get from Frost Shocks, so we would prefer instead to just buff the damage of our Maelstrom weapon spenders, including Elemental Blast or this damage here, so that every time we press a spender, we can immediately Frost Shock right away to gain value. So it will be back to that old playstyle of, we can build up to 15 if we want now, but then we Chain Lightning or LA Blast into Frost Shock. Chain Lightning, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, Frost Shock. We can get that nice cadence of 3 in a row and then allow us to fill back up our spenders. Or if you'd like, weave it. And the point will be that one of those, usually 3 if you're at 15 Maelstrom stacks, is going to be a gigantic 100% buffed Frost Shock. We're also picking up elemental weapons, which is going to increase our frost damage. We'll want to take fire and ice, which we likely would take anyways because it's one of the throughput options. And we're pairing it together with Prime Wave gameplay to give us a lot of haste, and also just to give us 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon on a 45-second cooldown. This part is far more important than the haste overall. Not that the haste doesn't give us good damage, but if we're thinking mainly of the Frost Shock damage, getting a essentially free 10 stacks of Maelstrom weapon means we can go back and forth between Chain Lightnings and Frost Shocks really consistently. Here, Elemental Blast is to help really punch out more damage, and down here, we're going to take Elemental Spirits to give us a little bit more general throughput and a lower CD for Feral Spirits to guarantee that we have Maelstrom weapon generation. Alpha Wolf might actually just be better throughput because it gives us cleave on our dogs. But the main purpose and the difference between the fire build is that what we're gaining here is a lot more uptime on Maelstrom weapon generating abilities. These dogs will be about a 1 minute CD given full Witch Doctor Wolfbone usage, and Primordial Wave entering into the equation also guarantees us to have a lot of builders and spenders going all the way along. That's how the build looks in general. You compare Nature's Swiftness together to get Elemental Blasts out to free up some of our GCD, since it's going to cut the cost and the mana cost of Elemental Blast, which will still buff Hailstorm as far as I understand. And then we have general Crash Lightning gameplay and filling with largely Lava Lashes in this case. I was trying to make it work with Storm Strike and potentially Forceful Winds, so that our auto attacks are generating a lot of Maelstrom weapons, and we get things like improved Stormbringer, potentially Elemental Assault, like the talent we have right now, so that all of our Storm Strike usage would also give us Maelstrom weapon. But the truth is, it's probably too much to pass up on 10% bonus frost damage here in the tree. The only maybe option to think about here is, would we prefer, instead of a lot of Lava Lash usage, something like Primal Primer, where we have one gigantic hit with our Lava Lash, and that would be how we would approach it, since we aren't too worried about Flame Shock spreading for Fire Nova. In any case, this one looks to be a little more GCD cramped and a little more fine in terms of the gameplay, so you have to be paying a bit more attention to your usage, but the cadence is pretty reasonable. You get your Ice Strikes, which is going to buff your next one. You fire off a 5-cost Ellie Blast, we get a big buff, maybe it's crit, maybe it's more mastery, and then we do Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, Frost Shock, Chain Lightning, Frost Shock. Our doggos are making sure we have a lot of intake, and Prime Wave additionally is making sure that our Crash Lightning gives us lots of haste. So overall, I think this is a cool build. It synergizes really nicely if we're doing a mastery heavy build, since we can rely on Prime Wave to give us a lot of the haste we need, or Flurry if we're getting lots of crits. And we can also rely on Hot Hands to make sure that we have something to press for our GCDs on a regular basis, while focusing most of our attention on the Frost Strike into Chain Lightning gameplay. I'm excited, guys. Enhancement Shaman with 3 fairly reasonable AoE or Mythic Plus builds all by themselves, kind of unique in their gameplay unto themselves, with some talents that you could give or take here and interesting options. It's going to be a cool time in Dragonflight for any Enhanced Shaman, and this is just the Mythic Plus stuff. We haven't even got around to thinking about single target or raid approaches. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments, guys. We'll catch you next time.